I always thought the ugliest fights in the world were between strangers. Then I watched my own family tear itself apart over money that didn't even belong to them. In today's story, I'm going to tell you how my aunt stole my inheritance, lied about my grandmother's last wishes, and tried to make me feel guilty for even asking what happened, and how I quietly, patiently, used the law and karma to destroy the life she built on theft. If you like long, emotional revenge stories about toxic family, betrayal, and justice catching up even when it's slow, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me until the very end, because the way this story turns is the only kind of peace my grandmother deserved. My name is Emily, and I didn't grow up in one of those families where everyone gathers around the table on Sundays and laughs together. My childhood was loud, but not in the good way. My parents were always fighting. About money, about responsibilities, about things that didn't really matter but felt like life or death in the moment. There were slammed doors, broken plates, long silences. The only person who brought calm into that chaos was my grandmother, Margaret. She lived in a small, neat house about 20 minutes away by bus. Her place smelled like lavender and old books. She always had something warm cooking, and her fridge was never empty, even though she was far from rich. I spent most weekends with her. Sometimes because my parents needed a break, sometimes because I just couldn't stand another scream and begged to go. She taught me how to bake bread, how to sew buttons, how to balance a checkbook, and how to carry myself with dignity, even when life didn't give you much. She was the first person who ever told me, "You are not an accident in this world. You were wanted, even if your parents don't always know how to show it." She didn't have a glamorous job. She had worked most of her life as a cleaner and part-time caregiver, always saving a little, always thinking about later. What I didn't know back then was how seriously she meant that, especially when it came to me. My grandmother had 2 children, my father and my Aunt Lisa. My dad was messy, emotional, and not the most reliable when it came to money, but he loved my grandmother and tried to help in his own imperfect way. My Aunt Lisa was different. On the outside, she looked like the perfect daughter. She lived closer, stopped by more often, and everyone at church knew her as the one who took care of her elderly mother. She posted photos on social media with captions like, "Nothing more important than honoring those who raised us. Love you, Mom." People would comment things like, "You're such a good daughter. Your mom is lucky to have you. Goals." What they didn't see were the little digs she made when no one else was around. "You really need all these old notebooks?" she would say, opening my grandmother's drawers without asking. "We should start thinking about simplifying things. You won't be here forever, you know." Or, "You shouldn't be giving Emily money for school supplies. Let her parents learn to be responsible. You're not a bank." My grandmother would just press her lips together and stay quiet, but I could tell those words hurt. Still, she made excuses for her. "Your aunt has a lot on her plate," she would say. "She's stressed. She doesn't mean everything she says." Even back then, I wasn't so sure. As I got older, my grandmother started hinting at things more directly. When I was around 16, she sat me down at her kitchen table one evening. The TV was on in the background, but the volume was low. She took off her glasses, rubbed her tired eyes, and said, "Emily, I need you to listen to me carefully. One day I won't be here anymore, and I know how this family is. I know how people become when there's money or a house involved." My chest tightened. "Grandma, don't talk like that," I protested. "You're fine." She smiled sadly. "I'm old, not immortal," she replied. "I've saved a little over the years. Not a fortune, but more than most people think. A bit in savings, a small life insurance policy, and of course this house." She gestured around. "I made arrangements," she continued. "I talked to a lawyer. There's a will. You may not get everything, but you will be taken care of. I want you to be able to study, to have a cushion if things go wrong. You're the one who needs it most." I felt my eyes burn. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because," she said, her voice firm, "I don't trust everyone to respect my wishes, and I want you to know that if something feels wrong after I'm gone, you're not crazy, you're not greedy, you're not ungrateful for asking questions. You have the right to know what I left for you." She squeezed my hand. "Promise me you won't let anyone make you feel guilty for that." I promised. At the time, I didn't realize how much that promise would matter. As the years went by, my grandmother slowed down. She moved more carefully, slept more, coughed a little harder. Eventually, the doctors found what we all feared: cancer. It wasn't the kind that gave you a lot of time. My Aunt Lisa all but moved into the role of guardian of my grandmother's life. She scheduled appointments, decided which treatments were worth it, and spoke to doctors like she was the only one qualified to understand. She also started talking more about costs. "Ooh, we can't drain everything on treatments that won't change the outcome," she would say. Mom would want us to be practical. My grandmother, tired and in pain, sometimes just nodded. Sometimes she closed her eyes and didn't respond. I visited as often as I could, holding her hand, reading to her, bringing her snacks when she could still eat them. One of the last times I saw her awake, she pulled me close and whispered, "Remember what I told you. About the house. About the savings. About your education. Don't let them say there was nothing." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I love you," I said. "I'll make you proud." She smiled softly. "You already did." A few weeks later, she was gone. Funerals don't bring out the best in everyone. In my family, they brought out the worst. At the wake, my Aunt Lisa cried loudest. She held on to guests, telling them how hard she'd worked to keep Mom comfortable, how exhausting it had all been, how she had sacrificed everything. People told her she was an angel. They hugged her. They praised her strength. I stood at the corner quieter, grieving in a way that didn't need an audience. After the funeral, talk about the will began almost immediately, but not with me. "Mom didn't have much anyway," Lisa said in the kitchen, her tone suddenly dry. "There's no point making a big thing out of it. We'll handle the paperwork and that's it." I remembered my grandmother's words. I remembered the lawyer. I remembered the house, the savings, the insurance. "Grandma told me she had a will," I said carefully. She said she talked to a lawyer. She said, Lisa cut me off with a sharp look. "Emily, this is not the time," she snapped. "Your grandmother didn't want you to stress over money. She knew we would take care of things. You're young. Focus on your life. Let the adults handle this." Something inside me bristled. "I'm an adult too," I replied. "And she told me specifically that she made sure I'd be taken care of. I just want to know what her wishes were." My aunt sighed dramatically. "Your grandmother was on a lot of medication near the end," she said. "She said a lot of things. You know how it is." I stared at her, because I knew exactly how my grandmother was: clear, deliberate, careful. I also knew exactly how my aunt was, and this didn't feel right. Weeks turned into a couple of months. No one mentioned the will again. No one called me about a lawyer. No one gave me any paperwork to sign. Meanwhile, things around my aunt started to change. She got a new car, not brand new, but definitely newer and nicer than the one she had before. She took a short trip to decompress after all the stress, posting pictures from a spa resort. She started talking about finally being able to fix the kitchen and investing in a few things. I knew she didn't suddenly win the lottery, so where was the money coming from? One day, I went to my grandmother's house, or what used to be my grandmother's house. The door now had a new lock. My aunt let me in reluctantly. Inside, things were different. Some of my grandmother's furniture was gone. Her jewelry box was empty. Shelves that used to hold old photo albums now had decorative objects that definitely weren't hers. "Where are Grandma's things?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, I donated a lot of it," Lisa answered casually. "She wouldn't want a bunch of junk sitting around. And some pieces I sold. The house needs work if we're going to sell it." "Sell it?" I repeated. "Grandma told me." "Grandma told you a lot of things," she snapped. "Stop living in fantasy. There wasn't much. I'm dealing with what's left. You should be thanking me." My hands shook. I decided in that moment that I wasn't going to argue with her anymore. I was going to find the truth. I didn't know the lawyer's name, but I knew my grandmother, and I knew she wouldn't have gone to someone far away. So I started checking. I called a few local law offices near her house, asking if they had ever handled a will or estate for Margaret. Sober no. Most said no. One said yes. When I went to the office, an older man greeted me. He looked at me with a mixture of surprise and recognition. "You must be Emily," he said. "She talked about you often." My heart pounded. "There was a will, wasn't there?" I asked. "She told me she made one. But my aunt says there wasn't much, that nothing was really left." He sighed. "There was definitely a will," he replied. "And there was more than nothing. Your grandmother wasn't rich, but she was responsible." He pulled out a file and showed me a copy. The will said, clearly, the house was to be split 50-50 between my father and my aunt, but I would have the right of first refusal to buy out their shares at a favorable price if I wanted to live there. A specific savings account was to go entirely to me, for education or a home. A life insurance policy named me and my father as beneficiaries in specific percentages. I felt dizzy. "And what happened?" I asked. "Because none of this was ever mentioned to me." He hesitated. "Your aunt came in after your grandmother passed," he said slowly. "She said there were changes, that your grandmother had reconsidered, that there was a new document drafted elsewhere. She presented something, but—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I had concerns. The signature didn't look right. The language wasn't in my style. I told her I would need to verify it before taking any action." "And did you?" I asked. He nodded. "I tried to contact your father and you, but I didn't have your updated information. By the time I followed up with your aunt, she said she had handled everything privately with the family." My stomach dropped. "Can I see the new document?" I asked. He pulled it out. My grandmother's name was on it, but the words didn't sound like her. The signature looked like hers at a glance, but the more I stared, the more it felt off. This updated will left everything, the house, the savings, the insurance, to Lisa. Nothing for me, nothing for my father. "I don't believe she signed this," I whispered. "Neither do I," the lawyer said quietly. "I showed everything to my father." He was shaken. "Your mother told me she wanted to leave something for you," he said, voice breaking. "She said she had talked to a lawyer. I didn't know Lisa had gone behind our backs." We went through old papers my grandmother had given him, just in case. Among them, we found something important. A handwritten letter she had addressed to both of us, dated months before she got very sick. In it, she wrote, "I have created a will with Mr. Inomdu Advogado. Emily will receive Detales. Please make sure she knows this and that no one convinces you otherwise." My father looked at me, eyes full of anger and guilt. "I should have pushed more," he said. "I should have been there when Lisa started taking over." "Dad, this isn't your fault," I replied. "We still have something powerful, her words and the law." I thought of my promise to my grandmother that night in the kitchen. I wasn't going to let this go. With the help of the lawyer, we gathered everything. The original will he had on file, the suspicious, updated one Lisa brought, my grandmother's handwritten letter, bank statements showing a suspicious transfer of funds from my grandmother's account to my aunt's right after she died, proof that the life insurance had been cashed out entirely by Lisa, even though the policy named me and my father as beneficiaries. We filed a formal challenge. We didn't warn my aunt first. We let the summons do the talking. When she got served, she called my father screaming. "How could you do this to me after everything I did for Mom?" she yelled through the phone. "You're going to drag the family name through the mud over a bit of money?" "It's not a bit of money, Lisa," my father replied. "It's Mom's life savings. It's Emily's future. It's what she wanted." "You're ungrateful," she spat. "Both of you. After all the work I put into caring for her and handling everything, this is how you repay me? With a lawsuit?" "You didn't care for her," I said, taking the phone. "You managed her. There's a difference. And you didn't handle everything. You stole it." She hung up. Good. Now we would talk in a room she couldn't manipulate with tears and guilt. A courtroom. Legal processes are slow, but they are also thorough. In court, the contrast between image and reality became obvious. My aunt arrived with a sad, elegant look, black dress, tissues in hand, ready to play the part of the grieving daughter attacked by greedy relatives. She told the judge, "My mother changed her mind near the end. She told me she didn't want the burden of money to fall on Emily. She was worried my brother would waste everything. She asked me to take care of it for everyone's good." The judge asked, "Do you have proof of these claims beyond this new will?" Her lawyer tried to make the new will sound legitimate. But then, a handwriting expert testified that the signature on the updated document was likely forged or traced. The original lawyer testified that he had not drafted that document and had warned Lisa of his doubts. The bank records showed immediate withdrawals and transfers to Lisa's personal accounts, far beyond what normal estate handling would require. The insurance company confirmed that the beneficiary information had been altered shortly before payout, under highly suspicious circumstances. My grandmother's letter, simple, handwritten, honest, was read aloud. Lisa's face went from confident to strained to panicked. The judge wasn't stupid. Neither was the law. In the end, the court invalidated the updated will. They reinstated the original document as the valid expression of my grandmother's wishes. That meant the house was to be split between my father and my aunt, with my right of first refusal protected. The savings account that Lisa had emptied had to be repaid to the estate, by her. The life insurance amount she had fully taken was ruled as misappropriated. A portion of it was ordered to be transferred to me and my father, as originally intended. On top of that, because of the forged will and the altered beneficiary information, Lisa faced not just civil consequences, but potential criminal charges. Fraud, forgery, the kind of words that don't look good on anyone's record. She cried in court then, but not for my grandmother, for herself. People from church who had come to support her now looked at her differently. Neighbors whispered the devoted daughter mask had slipped. The judge looked at her and said, "Grief does not excuse fraud. Your mother worked her entire life to build something small but meaningful. You tried to erase her voice from her own legacy. This court will not allow that." For the first time since my grandmother died, I felt vindicated. The legal process took care of the money. Karma took care of the rest. Word spread in our community. Not because we shouted it from the rooftops, but because people talk. The church where my aunt used to be praised for her sacrifice quietly removed her from certain roles. Families who had once asked her for advice on elder care no longer did. Her own son, my cousin, pulled away from her, disgusted. "You tried to steal from Grandma?" he said to her once in a conversation I later heard about. "From Emily? From your own mother? What is wrong with you?" Her business, a small beauty salon she'd been trying to grow, suffered. Some clients stopped going, uncomfortable with the idea of supporting someone who would steal from her own mother's grave. She blamed us, of course. She said we exposed private family matters. She said we ruined her life over money. But I knew better. We didn't ruin her life. She did. We just refused to help her hide it. I did end up using part of the inheritance for what my grandmother wanted. My education. I went back to school, took courses I had paused because I couldn't afford them, and eventually got a better job. I also moved into her house. I bought out my aunt's legal share at the court-appointed value, which by then she was desperate enough to accept because of the debts from legal fees and repaying what she'd stolen. Standing in that house the first night as its true, rightful occupant, I felt her there. Not in a ghost story way. In the creak of the floorboard where she used to stand while cooking. In the faint smell of lavender that still clung to some of the sheets. In the way the evening light hit the kitchen table where we used to sit and talk. I put her photo on a small shelf in the living room. "I kept my promise," I whispered. "I didn't let them erase you, or what you wanted for me." People sometimes ask me if it was worth it to go through all that legal struggle, all that family conflict for money. My answer is always the same. It wasn't about the money, it was about respect. Respect for the woman who raised me when no one else really did. Respect for her work. Respect for her right to decide what happened to what she built. My aunt thought she could rewrite my grandmother's story after she died. The law disagreed. So did I. If you've ever had a relative try to twist a will, hide money, or guilt trip you for asking questions about what someone you loved left behind, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Would you have let it go for the sake of peace? Confronted them privately? or taken it to court like I did. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to hear that defending a loved one's last wishes is not greed, it's love. And if you want more long emotional revenge stories about toxic family, inheritance wars, and justice that actually honors the right person, stay tuned. Season 2 is just getting started.